In 2003, Washington state faced a $10 billion problem. Rivers so dry, salmon were dying, and farmers were losing entire harvests. The government's first plan was to build massive new dams. Instead, they did something almost nobody expected, and they released hundreds of beavers into the driest, most damaged rivers in the state. Farmers called it a joke. Wildlife officials thought it might fail within weeks, but within a few years, water that had vanished for over a decade started coming back, and scientists still can't fully explain how fast it happened. So how did an animal most people consider a nuisance end up solving a multi-billion-dollar water crisis? To understand how strange this decision really was, you have to go back further. Washington's snowpack, the state's natural water storage system, had been shrinking for years. Warmer winters meant less snow and more rain, and rain runs off mountains almost immediately instead of melting slowly over months. By early summer, entire stretches of riverbed in the Methow Valley were completely dry, sometimes for miles at a time. The scale of what had actually been lost was staggering. Before European settlement, riparian zones, the green corridors where rivers meet land, are estimated to have covered 40 to 50% of the landscape across the western United States. Today, that number has collapsed to less than 2%. Beavers hadn't just disappeared from these valleys, an entire ecosystem had quietly disappeared along with them. Salmon and trout, which need cold, moving water to survive, disappeared from whole sections of river. Farmers watched irrigation channels run empty in the middle of growing season. And when the state calculated what it would cost to fix this with traditional infrastructure, new dams, reservoirs, pumping systems, the number came out to roughly $10 billion. That's when a small group of researchers proposed something that sounded almost too simple to take seriously, but convincing anyone to actually try it was a completely different story. The idea, instead of building anything, bring back an animal that used to do this job naturally, for free, before fur trappers wiped it out of the region in the early 1900s. Beavers. The problem was that this wasn't just about dropping animals into a river and hoping for the best. One of the earliest large-scale beaver relocation attempts in the region gives a sense of just how brutal this could actually be. To establish just 16 surviving colonies, biologists had to release an average of 21 beavers per site. Without the shelter of a lodge or a familiar territory, a newly released beaver becomes an easy target for coyotes, cougars, and bears within days of arriving. So the real question wasn't whether beavers could rebuild a river, it was whether any of them would even survive long enough to try. If this project failed the same way, it would hand critics exactly the excuse they needed to shut it down for good. So the team behind the project, led by wildlife biologist Kent Woodruff, had to figure out something that had barely been attempted at this scale before. How do you actually make a wild animal want to stay somewhere new? What they came up with surprised even people inside the wildlife conservation world. Beavers are territorial and live in tight family units, so releasing random individuals wasn't going to work. First, the team had to determine each animal's sex, which isn't visually obvious with beavers. Then came the strangest part of the process, temporarily housing beavers together to see which pairs actually got along, essentially running compatibility tests before committing two animals to the same territory. Researchers themselves described it as something close to a dating service, just for rodents. Only after a pair passed this test would the team select a release site, always a damaged, dried-out stretch of public land upstream, chosen specifically because of what it could do for the water supply further down the valley. In some locations, they even pre-built artificial lodges, giving new pairs a head start before winter hit. It was slow, expensive, and according to some early critics, completely unnecessary. Then the first results started coming in, and even the skeptics inside the program went quiet. By the time researchers finally sat down to tally the results, what they found went further than almost anyone on the team had expected. Between 2008 and early 2016, 240 beavers had been relocated to 51 separate sites across the upper Methow River. Those animals had built 176 dams in places where a decade earlier there had been nothing but dry rock and dust. Each of those dams acted like a small natural reservoir. Water that used to rush downhill during spring snowmelt and disappear within weeks was now being held back in dozens of ponds and wetlands, then released slowly, all the way through the driest months of late summer. A separate team from the University of Washington, tracking a similar project in the Skycomish Valley, found something just as striking. In a year with only 30% of normal snowfall, areas with beaver dams retained dramatically more water than nearby areas without them. And according to projections from the Lands Council, if beavers were reintroduced across just 10,000 miles of suitable habitat statewide, the water retained could reach the equivalent of 650 trillion gallons a year. But the water wasn't even the most surprising part of what happened next. Beaver ponds don't just store water, they create cold, sheltered pools, exactly the conditions young salmon and trout need to survive before migrating out to sea. Researchers already knew this mattered. In the nearby Stillaguamish River, the earlier loss of beaver dams had coincided with an almost 90% drop in young coho salmon surviving through summer. So as the dams returned, so did the fish. There were smaller, stranger moments too. One relocated beaver fitted with a tracking chip left its release site entirely, swimming all the way to the mouth of the Methow River, then continuing up an entirely different river system dozens of miles away as if it had its own plan the researchers never accounted for. Not every state saw beavers the same way, even as Washington's results piled up. While this program was expanding, Oregon still classified beavers as predators on private land, the same legal category as coyotes. California, for decades, didn't officially recognize beavers as native to large parts of the state, despite clear historical evidence otherwise. Washington wasn't just fighting a drought, it was fighting an old, deeply rooted assumption that this animal was a pest to be removed, not a tool to be used. By the time all of this had played out, the program's success was hard to argue with. In 2012, Washington passed a law officially recognizing beaver relocation as a legitimate water management strategy. By the end of 2024, it had become permanent state policy, with dozens of organizations now running their own relocation programs across more than a third of the state's counties. An animal once treated as a nuisance had become one of the state's most effective tools against drought, and nobody had to pour a single foundation of concrete to make it happen. But as unbelievable as this story is, it's not the strangest comeback America has seen. Because in Oklahoma, scientists brought back one of the greatest giants this continent has ever known, an animal that once roamed the plains by the tens of millions before being pushed to the very edge of extinction. And what happened after it returned to the land left researchers struggling to explain it. What you're about to see next might be even harder to believe. Stay close.